بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So how's everybody getting on this Ramadan? How are you finding taraweeh? Are you experiencing like a big slump after you've broken your fast? Are you feeling a mid-afternoon slump? Today I want to give you a few short tips on how to keep awake for your night prayers. And I'm going to start by talking about what we call postprandial somnolence, which is basically feeling exhausted after you've broken your fast. Why does this happen? So in the previous videos, we've talked about what you should be eating when you break your fast, but I want to elaborate on this a little bit more. So it's not actually normal to feel completely washed out after breaking your fast or after a meal. It's suggestive of other problems, either with the meal or with your own metabolism. So the first thing is that if you are experiencing this exhaustion, you need to look at your diet. Make sure that, remember, after a long day of fasting, your stomach will be small, and the blood supply will largely have been diverted away from the gut to the brain. So when you are suddenly putting a big, heavy, rich, sweet, fatty meal into your stomach, that's going to be a lot of work for the digestive system. It's going to require, all the enzymes, all the sort of peristalsis, a lot of energy use in that. So that blood has to be diverted away from the brain somewhat to the gut. And that can be quite an exhausting process. Not just that, if your food is toxic, so for example, it's deep fried, it's full of chemicals, or it's processed, or it's got high levels of it's basically sweet and fatty, or, very fatty with unhealthy fats. It's going to require a lot of effort, and it's also going to produce toxins. So a lot of what we call oxidative stress, which is really hard on your mitochondria. If you have any degree of insulin resistance, this can also make things worse. So insulin resistance happens not just in diabetics, but happens in pre-diabetics. So on that journey towards becoming resistant to insulin, our body is working harder and harder to tuck the sugar away inside the cells and inside the liver, and it's having to produce more insulin to do that. A good marker of insulin resistance is if you've got an increasing waist circumference, or there can be other signs as well. Again, if you have a very sugary meal, you can get something called reactive hypoglycemia. So you produce a lot of insulin at once, and then your blood sugars will drop, and then you will feel very, very tired. And again, the last thing is sort of metabolic endotoxemia. So if you've got a leaky gut, so your gut is not very healthy, or you're having foods that you're sensitive to, or that have a high toxin load. So they are, for some people that might include dairy and gluten, not for everybody, but particularly processed foods, or if you have a gut that's not healthy, again, you can feel very, very tired. So how can we mitigate for this tiredness? Because of course we want to stay up, we want to worship. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا دخل الجنة. So whoever stands up in the nights of Ramadan hoping for the reward will enter paradise. And this is recorded in Bukhari. So there's a bit of a paradox here. We want to stay up, we've just broken the fast. Actually, we feel really tired. It's a struggle. So I'm going to give you a few quick tips to help you optimize your worship, inshallah. So the first thing is looking at sleep. And by that, I mean, have you got the opportunity to take a daytime nap? Maybe even if it's 10 minutes, and perhaps no more than 20 minutes in the sort of late afternoon. So you get the reward of fulfilling the qaylula of the Prophet ﷺ, the mid-afternoon nap, and also recharging your system for the evening. If you haven't got a chance to do that, you should definitely look at your night sleep. And alhamdulillah, we're very fortunate this year. The fast is slightly shorter, so it's very possible to get 3 good 90-minute sleep cycles in before you get up for suhoor. So aim for approximately 4.5 hours of sleep in the first part of the night, between your taraweeh and your suhoor time, when you get up for the tahajjud, or when you get up to have your meal. And then you can at least, inshallah, try and get one more cycle in after that. So 6 hours of sleep is quite doable, inshallah, this year. And thirdly, have a look at rest and transition. So if you've had a busy day at work, It's really important to transition before you start to get busy with the evening routine, even if it's that 10-15 minutes, even whether it's worship, whether it's shutting your eyes, whether it's a meditation, listening to some Quran, but really zone out, and then pick yourself up again. Don't keep pushing yourself because you'll burn out. The second thing I want to talk about is food. So we've spoken about that already. So make sure your meal is light. You're not eating in a gluttonous fashion. You're avoiding sort of rich and heavy foods, fried foods, sugary foods, cakes, pastries, burratas, pakoras. Anything that's considered a deep fry is not a good idea. Any sort of really heavy curries are probably not a good idea. I'm not saying don't have a curry, I'm saying just make it light. So cook with a small amount of olive oil. That's something that you can digest. Have some healthy fats at that time that work with your body. And of course, the other aspect of eating is hydration. Hydration is really important. If you don't drink correctly, you will definitely be tired because your blood circulation will be sluggish to the brain and to the gut and to wherever it needs to be. So you will feel very, very exhausted. On top of that, you'll be releasing a lot of toxins from your food, and generating inflammation that needs to be carried away from the gut. So you need to make sure that you're well hydrated. And ideally, you want to aim for about 2 liters or 1.5 liters of fluids between iftar and suhoor. And as I've said before, you can have this in small sips. If you have all your water in one go, your bladder will be very full. You need to go to the bathroom and you will find it very difficult to eat properly or even to pray properly. So the key is to have some hydration, space it out. However, there are a couple of other tips regarding hydration. Some people like to take coconut water, which is fine. Just make sure it's not one with fructose. The other tips that sometimes are very helpful are electrolytes that you can add in. So these are basically salts in the water, and that might include things like magnesium salts or vitamin B salts. These can help to improve, vitamin B. You can get energy sticks, and basically these will improve the release of energy from food and take away some of the tiredness. And you can simply stir that into your water at iftar time. The other tip is to have a look at caffeine. Now, I know that in my previous talks, I have said no caffeine, stop it before Ramadan. And the reason for that is that often people get rebound migraines and get dehydrated. However, if you are not somebody who suffers rebound migraines and you've managed to wean off, and you're keeping well hydrated otherwise, you could have a small amount of caffeine. So perhaps a partially decaffeinated coffee or a tea might be very, very helpful. Now, I want to bring this discussion up because coffee, this is not the place to go into coffee in a lot of detail, but coffee, qahwa, was discovered first in Yemen by a Yemeni scholar, a certain Imam Shadili, who had a dream about it because he used to struggle to stay up for night worship. And the scholars have debated coffee a lot because, as you know, it's a stimulant. However, I think the overall consensus of the early scholars was that if it helped you to stay up to worship at night, it was probably a good thing. So we want to strike the right balance between being able to stay up for taraweeh and getting enough good quality sleep. So the way to do that is to perhaps have a small shot of a good quality, healthy, organic, toxin-free coffee, maybe a single espresso or a decaf blend, which is usually 50% normal coffee and 50% decaf, something along those lines, or a cup of tea, something that would work for you. I would still steer well clear of energy drinks such as Red Bull or Lucozade. There's way too much sugar in there and way too much caffeine, and it will have the wrong effect on you. And inshallah, that should help you to stay up for worship. The other thing that's amazing about coffee is really that it has a good amount of fiber in it, which is really important for nurturing your gut microbes, and also polyphenols, so micronutrients that are really important to support gut health. And it really is, they've found studies where they've looked at coffee drinkers and noticed that actually the gut microbiome, so the environment in the gut of coffee drinkers, is completely different to that of non-coffee drinkers. And we're thinking increasingly that it has a number of significant health benefits that I'm not going to go into. So used carefully, it's probably a useful addition to your fasting routine. And my last tip is around exercise. So you don't want to overexert yourself because you will definitely be very tired in the evening. However, light exercise is good, but in particular around between your iftar and your taraweeh, if you are able to walk to the mosque or get out for a light walk, that will wake you up and also increase your blood circulation and help you feel relaxed and ready for prayer, release some energy. So light exercises such as stretches or a walk will be very, very helpful, inshallah. Okay, so before I end, I just want to remind you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants these for us and not hardship. And there's a hadith in Bukhari narrated by Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ entered his mosque and found a rope tied between two pillars, and he asked what this rope was for. And they said this was the rope of Zainab alayhi salam, and she would use it to help herself stay awake at night when she was tired and couldn't stay up to pray. And he asked for that rope to be removed and said that she should rest, so we should pray when we're fresh and comfortable. So the point here is not, obviously we don't want to miss the reward of taraweeh and of Ramadan and of the night prayers, which, we all want to enter Jannah, and it's such an easy, beautiful way that connects us with the Quran. But we have to do what is according to our power. Our test is according to our power, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But it's down to us to take the practical means to optimize our ability to worship at night, whether that means we break up the prayer into chunks and we do some at the beginning of the night and then get up a bit later once we're rested, because it's a voluntary prayer. It doesn't have to be done in one go. And whether we use some of the tips and tricks I've told you in terms of managing our diet, having the right kind of hydration, a bit of caffeine, and an afternoon nap. Set your intention and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the way. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.